Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. Is this working now? Yes. Excellent. And what about yours?
Check, check. 1, 1. Yep, it's working. Very far away. Like I'm at the bottom of a well, very deep well.
Well, you've heard a lot of introduction, but I wanted to say, of course, that Deborah's known for her great voice and her magnetic performances, her gutsy presentations and her brilliant songwriting. One reviewer pointing to her caustic wit and acidic insight. But how does songwriting translate into this full-length memoir? Well, with wisdom and depth is my view about how it translates. Especially when the memoir covered not only her family, the one she came from, and the one she made with her husband Willie, but also sex and love and birth and death and business and creativity and making music and making the art that is songwriting. A story of wild success and a measure of failure, a lesson in fighting through expectations, of taking things into your own hands, of risk and reward and love and commitment to family. And of course, since here we're at Bert Weitzman, it's also about what it means to you to be a Jew. But you start your book with a quote from Dostoevsky, a famous anti-Semite actually.
Listen, you can't have everything.
But who wouldn't? Dostoevsky was a great writer.
He is.
And doing it, about looking back on your life and doing it honestly. And the quote is, whether one can, even with oneself, be perfectly open and not take fright at the whole truth. Now, you present as a woman who's not frightened, but did looking back cause you to wince at all?
There were moments when I would be, I think more, not so much when I was writing it, because when you're writing it, when you're engaged in that creative process, there's a measure of distance between feeling it and it, I don't know, it's a different thing. It's a different mechanism that opens in your brain so that you're creating from 100 feet. But when I read it afterwards and I'm going, when the editing process, and a lot of things happen in the editing process that I was not aware of when I was actually writing it.
Like what?
Well, I'll get through this bit. I was reading the book, the chapters, and thinking, oh, I really don't like myself. I really am an awful person. And I didn't think that when I was writing it, but I guess that's sort of, then I thought, well, at least I've been honest about it. But so it was kind of a revelation to me that, and I had to kind of come around again and say, oh, I guess I'm not that bad, But there was that kind of, I'm very abrasive.
So that hadn't occurred to you before?
No.
Well, a bit. Well, given that you have a reputation.
I know.
Tell us about your reputation, because
My reputation is tough, it's true. I have got a tough reputation. I haven't never really taken a step back from just being completely brutally honest. Not always necessarily the right way to get the best out of people, but just to be able to track into the situation and make everybody understand the realities of what it is that they need, that you need, that the situation needs. It's always better to be to strip away the kind of sometimes the veneer of politeness is unhelpful, and so I guess that tends to kind of speak to a person who is considered abrasive or a little bit, I don't know if I'm ruthless, but I'm definitely very direct.
Is that because you are a perfectionist and you want your work to be as good as it can be, and you want other people who are involved with it to do their jobs to make it as good?
Of course you want everybody to do their jobs correctly. So if I've come to a venue and I've put myself out there and I have learnt my songs and made sure that I know my words and I'm playing them correctly, and I want the sound to be acceptable and not be this screaming feedback out of my foldback system. And so, yes, I have been known to tear strips off the foldback guy. Yes, it's true. And say, listen, if I did my job as badly as you, I would never have a job again. And so, yes, there's been occasions like that. Yes, I mean, you expect people to kind of do their gig that they have been employed to do as to the best of their capacity. And I don't know if that's being a perfectionist, but if it is, then yeah, I guess I'm a perfectionist.
I was thinking that when you were saying that, you know, when you write it, you just, and this is the way everybody should write, which is just just ignoring the fact that anybody will read it and just saying everything you want to say, just spilling it out, just doing everything and putting on the page. And then when you read it, you think, oh, how will it be if other people read it? But that's not exactly what you're saying. You're saying, how is this when I'm reading it?
Well, I don't know what other people will think. That's not, I can't ever figure, that's not for me to figure out. That's for other people to relate to the thing that that they're in front of. And everybody brings their own history and their own stories and their own experiences to whatever, you know, words they're reading on a page. So I can only really speak for me. But when I translated the written word into the audio book, which Willie and I did together in a studio. Oh, darling, your patience was extraordinary. And we did this over several weeks. It took a really long time. And I was moved to tears in many, many places, which I hadn't been when I was writing it. And it surprised me. And I think, and Willie also, it surprised him too, because there had been, as I said, there had been the kind of membrane between me and the meaning of what I was writing while I was investing myself in the creating of it, because it's a different thing. You're thrilled that you're creating. It's a beautiful pursuit. You're trying to find exactly the right word to fit into exactly the right sentence, to fit exactly into the right paragraph and put them all together and the right chapters. And it's an obsessive and a very absorbing task. But when you don't have to do that, and when you're just going back and reading it, then it's the emotional content that really that takes you out, and it laid me out. It really did. So it was interesting. But I didn't think, oh wow, it's going to be a bestseller. I didn't think that. It was just hard. So I don't know what other people will make of it. So.
Well, I made of it. I loved it. So
you told me it was a beautiful response. Actually, you rang me, Ramona. I have friends. Ramona, I've cooked many of Ramona's cakes, and they always work. That's good. Ramona, I asked Ramona to read my book so she could provide a cover quote, which she did, a beautiful cover quote. But I remember that you rang me up after you'd finished reading it. It was like you'd only just finished reading it, and I could hear the emotion in your voice. You were choked up. Yeah. You were trying to tell me how moved you were by this. And I was so moved by you being moved. It was fantastic. It was so thrilling. It was like one of the first responses that I'd had. And I can't tell you how much that meant. It was great.
I know as a writer what it means if somebody tells you that. So I wanted to do it for you because I felt it. And I thought, she needs to know this because this is your first book.
I could tell it was totally genuine.
But are you a girl who always knew what she wanted or knew what she didn't want? Or what to say no to rather than what to say yes to?
What years are we talking? When I was young, I just knew I wanted to be famous. It's kind of, yeah, I know. It's really quite childish, isn't it? It's very immature.
Shallow, isn't it, really?
No, it's fairly shallow. That's right. I mean, I just wanted to be famous somehow. I mean, I loved singing. I always loved singing. I always sang in the shower. My mother always said, oh, you know, yeah, you're all right. Could be better. But I thought I was good. I liked it. But I never sang at school because I didn't like the music teacher, so I didn't join the choirs, which it was a silly thing to do because it would have immeasurably improved my ability to harmonise and read music, but nevertheless. So I didn't want to do things I didn't want to do. I never wanted to do things I didn't want to. So I was very bad at working for people in jobs that I felt were senseless. So I would get a job in my parents' friend's jewellery store, and I'd dust all the tchotchkes, and I'd, put them all back, and then I'd sit there and I'd read a book, and someone came in and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I've dusted everything. I'm just reading a book." And you weren't allowed to do that.
You had to
and
look
I'm like,
busy.
"What? Why? I've dusted already. Just look busy. Do it again." And I thought to myself, what customer wouldn't appreciate the fact that they walk into the store and a salesperson is reading a book? And I didn't get it. So I stopped working there.
So you basically worked for yourself. You knew that you had to work for yourself.
It was hard for me to do things that I thought were senseless. So I found that most sort of basic employment had a huge ratio of senseless tasks attached to it. So I knew that was something I was going to fail at badly.
But you say that your work with Do Re Mi, we were having a lot of success with our modus operandi. We were control freaks. People were curious, incensed, irritated and intrigued, but at least they were talking about us. This modus operandi, you've perfected it, and you've surrounded yourself with people who were okay with it.
Shared it to a certain extent. So that quote is referring to the fact that in the band that I was in with the drummer from Do Re Mi, was called the Benders. We played every night for 8 months, and increasingly in rooms that didn't have many people in it, and I wasn't enjoying very much, and we decided that wasn't the way that we wanted to conduct the operations in the next musical venture that we created, which was in Sydney, and it was Do Re Mi, and we'd found a bass player and eventually a guitar player to share that. And the idea was that we would play a lot less, but we would make it special. And it was not the way that Australian bands did it, but we were kind of breaking a mould here. And I liked that. I liked the fact that we were doing something that made sense to us, that was different to what other people were doing, but it worked, and it did work. We did really piss off a lot of people, but at the same time, we actually got a lot of notoriety and a lot of attention, and that was, obviously, in the long run, that was the key to our success.
But your memoir is actually a great education into the business side of being a pop musician, and you don't often get this insight into work. It's a book about work, really, as well as all the other things. Yeah. Dealing with the record companies, striking out as an independent, taking advantage of new technologies, and even founding a new marketing method of performing in people's own homes, the house party model. I mean, you are quite a business innovator, aren't you?
I'm a pioneer.
With Willie, of course, we should say as well.
Of course,
here in the
of
front row.
course.
But we can't keep saying with Willie all the time, but just take it as read.
Take it as read.
But, where'd you get this business brain from?
I don't know, but I was always very good at garage sales. Something I really like doing.
What, you know how to sell or buy?
Oh, no, I know how to sell. I know how to sell.
How do you, like what?
Yeah,
you like to talk to people?
I like to talk to people. I like, this would be
this will be good for you.
This is what you need.
See, your parents weren't in the rag trade. I don't know how you got it.
I don't know. But it was like the little thrill. I like those little thrills. I think that what you said is important, because I think that there's a lot of memoirs that, from musicians, and they don't talk about the industry, and it's obtuse, the music industry, and I think people think they might know how it works, but I think they don't really have a clue how it works. And I think I've demystified that a lot. And a lot of people their jaws drop when they read the sums and the way the contracts work.
But when you say how much it costs to produce a CD, compared to how much you were paying for somebody else to produce it for you.
So that kind of
stuff.
like
Well, 1,000% more or something. Some kind
It's
of crazy.
But all of the record companies, they were all as bad as each other. It's a great, mafia-style monopoly to keep artists in the dark.
I think you'll find the publishing industry is exactly the same.
Maybe, but I haven't rubbed up against that one hard
Not yet.
But yeah, and it's sort of crazy how they've been allowed to get away with it for such a long time, because what they're preying on is young people who have a song in their heart and a dream to succeed, and the business is kind of secondary, and maybe they get a lawyer, and maybe the lawyer's kind of a little bit on the side of the record company too, because they do a lot of business with the record company. I mean, this was our experience. I'm not saying it's everybody's, but it's just a lot of forces are kind of conspiring to keep artists ignorant of the real nature of the music business. So breaking through that and kind of seeing the other side, being on the other side of Alice in the Looking Glass. It was a drop into reality that was quite precipitous.
But you know what's fantastic about you? I mean, you famous, successful, and go to London and try LA and then kind of not as successful, to the point where you and Willie decide we really need to move some of these units, as they say. Let's play for people in their houses. I mean, that is like from here to here to here. Now, what does it take to be able to do that? It's sort of like, you mean
to think of the idea, or to be able to
be able to take your ego and go into people's houses instead of being on a huge...
I don't have that kind of ego.
Well, tell me about that, because
I have got an ego. I've got a healthy ego. We've all got healthy egos, but it doesn't work that way. I don't feel like, whatever works, I love thinking up new stuff. It really excites me to be able to think of a new way to market something, or a new way to do business, or a new way to engage people. And it's okay for me to, be lugging out gear at the end of the night and then go and sell merchandise. It's not like, it's really honest.
Yeah.
It's really kind of, it's one of, I understand my work. I often don't understand people's work. Oh yes, I manage money. What? What does that mean? I don't know. But I get my work. And it's very kind of, we make the work, we perform the work, we record the work, we play the work, we sell the work. There's a sort of an honesty about that.
And you connect with people about the work.
And you connect with people about the work. So I don't feel like there's a loss of ego, that I'm somehow demeaning myself because I'm suddenly, taking people's money and going, yeah, enjoy that, it's okay. Whatever. Hey, take two, it's good. I'll do you 3 for 50. Yeah? I don't mind. It's not a problem for me. But the summer wear party that you've referred to a couple of times, that in fact was an extraordinary breakthrough, actually, and no one had ever done it before, and it was such a shape-shifting idea. Because suddenly, what I was trying to think about was, how do we get into people's living rooms if radio won't play you? And radio just weren't playing us because, I don't know, we were too old. We weren't making songs like wherever the Taylor Swift was of the day, but, there was, and so it was like, well, maybe you just walk into them. You just walk into their living rooms.
Knock on the door.
And so how do we do that? Okay, blah, blah, blah. And this, I detail it in the book, and this idea was born, and it wasn't just a great idea for us. It actually changed the music industry, because a lot of people started doing it after that. No one had done it before. In 2003-04, this was a brand spanking new idea. And so that was thrilling, yeah.
And now other people do it.
Other people do it. Other people have businesses, make businesses out of it. In fact, I've been approached by I think they're called Parlour. And they said, oh, we've got this great business idea. We'd like you to come and, register with us and we can... And I had to write them a letter and say, listen, Sonny, where do you think you got that idea from?
So you've kept diaries over the years. And was that to hone the songwriting, or why did you keep a diary?
Because I always liked writing and because I always thought I should keep a diary. And I would always start on January the 1st. And by February, March, it was kind of like every once in a while. And, I've got no Decembers. No Decembers. But, but always, in the margins of my lyric books. I had a boyfriend, my boyfriend before Willie. He had a whole room dedicated to his diary keeping. And now I think about it, I think, oh my God, that would be quite a burden. How would you ever find anything? You'd have to, and it would be painful to read. And he has a good memory too, so he probably didn't even need to do that. But anyway, he did. I wonder if he still does, I have no idea. Must ask him. But I love the idea of it, but I just couldn't keep it up. But I have kept all my lyric writing books. And my lyric writing books are they're very eclectic.
What goes into them?
Well, obviously all the lyrics.
Yeah, but obviously.
And obviously
what goes
all
around
the ideas,
that?
all the phone numbers that I have to write down, the names of people that I need to meet, the scraps of ideas, things that I've heard that I like the idea of that I never necessarily develop, but I just write it down. I found a story that I had written about my ex-brother-in-law the other day, which was a fantasy that I thought was that I'd completely forgotten about. Poems, strange, lots and lots of strange, and they're good. They're fun to kind of go back and look through, and then if you're feeling really lucky, and the gods are smiling upon you, the muses are smiling upon you, you might come across a line that just triggers a song. Because let me tell you something, Ramona.
Tell me.
It's so much harder to write a song than it is to write a book.
Okay, that is really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I think we have to unpack that, as they say.
Let's do that.
Because, I write a book like this, which is your memoir. You kind of know what happened.
I know.
Because a song is something that's coming from in here and out there, and you have to catch it, don't you?
Not only do you have to catch it. I mean, sometimes there are just sort of epiphanies that that you have to write about. But often, you're just working something until suddenly this thing appears in front of you that you don't quite know how it got there, but it makes perfect sense, and you realise that you can do something with it. But it's really ephemeral, and it's very difficult to control. And then, of course, it has to fit perfectly with the mood of the music and the beat and the melody.
But you're sounding like the melody and the beat and the music comes first.
Not necessarily, but you have to make all those things work together. So it's such a complex twining together of all of these different strands that have to work together perfectly and seamlessly. And the ideal song is the song that people hear and go, I feel like I've heard it before, but I haven't. It feels like it always was. And that's the perfect song. When you write a song that just feels like it was effortless, that's it, you got it.
And how many of those?
Not many. Not many. Not, everybody, there are extraordinary songwriters who have a much better hit rate than I do, or than we do. It's hard. It's really hard, And I guess it depends what you like. I mean, obviously, every song that Taylor Swift writes apparently is a hit. Apparently.
Well, how did you organise the music and composing and having 3 daughters? Did you think that these children are going to actually cramp my style?
No.
They're not here, are they?
No. They wouldn't bother coming here. No, I mean, I think we wanted to have a child. We wanted to have a child, then we wanted to have a second child to give to the first child. And then the third child, we weren't absolutely convinced we didn't want it, but then it was completely out of our hands, so it was some kind of immaculate conception, you know how that happens. But, well, anyway, did to us. But I think, you know, as hard as it's been to have small children, and in a way, I mean, Willie did, you know, it was a 60-40 gig really, because I spent a lot of time on tour as well, leaving, you know, Willie in charge of 3 children under 5. I mean, I was making...
Please, a hand for Willie.
He never lost his sense of humour, ever. You know, but I was on the road with Patsy Cline for 6 months, you know, swanning around in 5-star hotel rooms and being told how hard I was working. And I go, you've got no idea. You've got no idea. Anyway, I had to sing 26 songs a night. And then, you know, when we made Summertown, we couldn't just find another dad. So Willie had to stay home, and I got another guitar player to fill in the role of Willie on the road. But, you know, look, we got through it, and we got lots of great songs out of it too. And, you know, you of course you don't regret a moment, because they're extraordinary, they're incredible. You know, they're my daughters, and they're divine. Yeah. And they sing, my God, when they sing. Oy.
You have a lot of pleasure from them. But tell me, talking about, you know, the joy and the pleasure of children, tell me how your life as a Jew started. What kind of a family were you from? I mean, you say that they kept kosher, but they weren't observant.
My parents didn't really keep kosher, I'd have to say.
But you said they kept kosher.
I did. They kept kosher in the sense that they never bought bacon or ham, or there was never any pork products in the house, ever. But when we went to the Chinese and got takeaway, you know, if there was that little bit of bacon in the whatever,
so,
it seemed to sneak in, and no one seemed to. We don't notice that. We didn't take any. It wasn't strict. It was, you know, and I think shellfish was okay. That was
all right, kosher-ish.
Kosher-ish. So that was all right. But then we had Friday nights most Friday nights we went to my grandma's. And then on the high holy days, we went to shul, and we did a shul hop around all of the different shuls at that time. There was Kew, and there was Temple Beth and Turak, and we'd end up at Caulfield. And then, you know, we had first and second night Seder, often at my grandma's. We had Christmas at my nana's.
Oops.
Yeah, you know, it's ecumenical. I don't know why, they just did. Because,
but they were one half were English Jews. Your dad's family.
So my father emigrated from England after World War II, but my mother grew up in Australia, and they were you know,
Aussie Jews.
Aussie Jews. So I guess it was different. I mean, you know, when I say we had Christmas, there was a Christmas tree, and you know, I think there were some presents. I put a pillowcase out on my bed every year until I was 11, at which point they said, no, Father Christmas doesn't come to little girls like you anymore. And I always think that I got lucky, because Shelley missed out at the same time, but she was 3 years younger, so I got 3 extra years out of it.
Were you interested in your Jewish life then when you began being a rock star, or did it take a back seat? I mean, how?
You know, it's interesting, because I remember thinking to myself. So I went to Temple Beth Israel. I went to Bialik kindergarten, Temple Beth for Sunday school and for summer camps, and I had really close, dear friends that I met at summer camps and I'm still friends with, and then I think I just knew. I knew at the time that now was not the time for me to be exploring my Jewishness. But there would come a time when I absolutely knew in the very deepest depths of my being that I would know I would be embracing this. And I don't know how I knew that, but I just put it away, and here it is, you know, or it was some time ago. But it's a funny thing because I just parked it because it was, you know, it just was something that would have been much more difficult to pursue, and I didn't have, you know, there weren't a lot of Jews in the Australian music industry. I mean, I don't think I knew any. I mean, that was the crazy thing. Like, you know, Willie and I, when I met Willie, he was like the only Jew in the Melbourne Jewish music scene that I knew. And suddenly, you know, we'd both gone to Temple Beth Israel, but we didn't know each other then. We were both born at the Jessie McPherson Hospital, and the same midwife signed our birth certificates 18 months apart.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? And then, you know, suddenly...
But it was important for you that he was Jewish.
I was having a lot of affairs with Jewish men before that, you know, while I was dating my Catholic boyfriend. So
it was dawning on you.
It was dawning on me. It was something that I was definitely moving in the direct line towards. I just hadn't quite figured out how to get there yet. But I guess I had figured it out, but you know, it was messy. It was very messy. And, but these things are often messy.
We'll come back to Jewishness in a moment, but how did you manage the need to be honest about other people's stories, or better, your story, which was peopled by those close to you?
You mean in the book you're talking about?
In the book,
sorry.
yeah. I mean, every writer of a memoir has to face this.
The most important thing is to be honest. You can't exaggerate. You can't gild the lily. You can't make it more favourable to you just because you want it to be that way. So I just figured to be as brutally honest as possible was the most generous, best thing that I could be to everybody involved. And if that meant that I somehow, you know, came out on top, or if it meant that I somehow looked a bit, you know, shabby, whichever way it happened, that would be the thing. But I was just really like, you know, this is what I'm going to write. And I didn't know. I sat down to write a book in 2019. It was November, I think. I was terrified of the idea of writing a book, but I absolutely felt compelled to do it because I'm often attracted to the things that are scary and I feel like they're good for me, so I do them. And I thought, well, I'll trick myself. I'll download my songs from my APRA list, APRA, Australasian Performing Rights Association. They keep a list of all the songs that you've ever written. I downloaded the list and I decided to write 100 essays based on around 100 song titles. Not 100 songs, but 100 song titles. So that's what I did. I ended up with like 210,000 words because you know, by the time March 2020 rolled around, we were all locked into our houses and we couldn't go out, we couldn't tour, we couldn't play anywhere or do anything or even pretty much leave the house. So it was a gift for me. It was an absolutely disastrous thing for, you know, young people, and for so many people it was terrible. But, you know, we were okay. I mean, it was quite. I wrote a book, so I didn't necessarily think about who is going to read this book. I certainly didn't. I wasn't aching to get a publisher. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and then at the end of the process, I thought, well, I'll do something with it. And so I just that was my North Star. Be as honest as possible. You're not trying to please anybody. You're not trying to write a book for anyone in particular, or you're not trying to educate someone, or you're just trying to be as honest as possible. And that was it. That was my, raison d'etre.
So no holds barred writing about your father's mental illness, your daughter's out there personality, the difficulties of raising teenagers, the angelic way they sound when they sing together. So when you'd written it, did you show it to them?
Totally, yeah, had to. I sent them each the chapter about them. And, Hetty is the kind of the most interesting example. Hetty is our youngest child, the one that we weren't fully intending to have, but then thought we should.
And are glad that you have her now,
of course. course. It was an interesting time. And there was never a question that she wouldn't make it through. It was just surprising. So anyway, but she's turned out to be a very interesting human being. Definitely a woman of her own temperament. And she posed real challenges for us on lots of different levels. And so the song Serpent's Tooth, which is from the album Everybody's Begging, was pretty much about her. And I wrote this chapter and I showed it to her and she went, yeah, fair enough.
Oh, that is such a blessing. My God, that is a blessing.
Yes. Well, to her credit, she.
Do you think we should? I'd love you to play Serpent's Tooth.
Yeah.
Because
right now?
it's such. Yeah, right now, because it is such an amazing song.
Okay.
If you imagine, it's about children and how difficult they can be.
It's about the difficulty of parenting a teenager.
I think we've all been here, or we know somebody who has. So listen to this.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Shall I turn this off? I'll turn this off now while you sing.
Leave your armies at the border. I surrender. You won't need your slings and arrows. I surrender. Take down your hair, my lovely. All those pins that hurt my hands, the sharpness of your judgment's wound. You leave me dumb, please still your tongue. Leave your weapons at the entrance. I surrender. You won't need your guns or bullets. I surrender. Oh, my heart is yours to keep. The tenderest of all my parts. Be careful of your brutal feet. Don't trample me beneath this love. Leave your armor on the doorstep. I surrender. You won't need your wall of silence. I surrender. I surrender. All those sleepless nights we spent in the comfort of my arms, your tangled legs, your warm sweet scent, my pillow's dent in remembrance. Leave your tempest in the hallway. I surrender. You won't need thunder. You won't need lightning. I surrender. You won't need that moat around you. I surrender.
Oh boy, I think you've taken us all back to the worst times, so, which is what art is supposed to do, isn't it?
Good.
It was wonderful.
It is. It's good. Yes, it is. It's called Serpent's Tooth because of of Shakespeare's play King Lear, when he says how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. So that's where the title comes from.
But your music became, I guess, more consciously Jewish a few years ago with the album called Stories of Ghosts.
Yep.
Tell me about that
So there was
that moment.
Well, it actually happened before that. We made a record called Half Man, Half Woman.
Oh, yes, that's right.
That's the green one that's kind of a bit longer and has the pop-up semi-pornographic half man, half female orchid inside it, which has fallen apart, unfortunately, because the glue is all... But anyway, it's quite a good IKEA project. But that had a track on it called Take Pity on the Beast. And that's mine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
You're
okay.
right. This is mine. Okay. We're not that good friends
Yeah, no.
that she's going to actually
We're
let
not.
me have some water.
So that was that kind of came about. Willie'd written a first verse, and I kind of went with it, and I created like little word portraits of people that we knew and people that we'd come across, and somehow the last verse became. I pulled out some lines from the Haggadah, and I put them in backwards, because and they were very powerful, and I suddenly kind of it was a sudden realization that I had joined, I guess, two halves of me together, the musician and the Jew. It wasn't like it ever went away. It was always there, and it was very kind of obvious. As I had a Jewish future with my children, and we were making sure that was being communicated. But this was bringing my artistic being into the what was essentially me, my kind of fundamental me, foundational me. And so we performed that. We were approached by a guy called Gary Holzman, who created a festival in Sydney called the Sheer Madness Jewish Music Festival. It was 2010, I think. And Half Man, Half Woman came out in 2008. And as part of the set, we played Take Pity on the Beast. And we played in front of all of these, all of these kids that were just dancing around. Their grandparents were there, the Holocaust surviving families, and it was so emotional for me. It was so emotional for us. We could barely get through it, and it just felt like, oh my God, we've locked onto something that's just kind of have just plunged down all of these layers into something so meaningful. And after that, it was easy. It was easy to find that vein of creativity. And I opened the Torah, and I went, right, well, we're just going to write songs based around the Torah for the next album, which was Stories of Ghosts. And we literally just wrote an album so that we could play it at the next Sheer Madness Music Festival. And then when the Sheer Madness Music Festival in Sydney had kind of run a few rounds, we decided we needed to put on a Sheer Madness Music Festival in Melbourne, but we couldn't find anybody to run it, so we ended up running it ourselves, which was
See how amazing
kind of
she is?
unfortunate. Yeah, I know, but it had to be done, so we did it. But the work was felt so important for us.
You went back to the source.
We went back to the source, and it wasn't like it was. I'm not saying that it was important work, but it was important for us to kind of to connect music to meaning and to find layers within it, and to be nourished by it and to communicate that. And I think those songs really touched a lot of people too. So,
Well, I'm going to get you to play one of them,
Okay.
whatever you like, but not quite yet.
okay.
I want to know what has happened. I mean, so many things have happened since October the 7th. So how have the politics of Israel and the politics of Australia asserted itself into your life as a Jew and as a performer and as a writer now? Because you've been a target.
As a human. Well, so on October the 7th, as it happened, we were performing songs from the Book of Life at Fairfax Studio. It was the last day of our 5 performances there, and we were playing the matinee, and Willie received a call from Hetty, our youngest daughter, our serpent's tooth, who was living in Israel. She said, "Don't worry, I'm sheltering in a stairwell. It'll all be okay." And we had no idea what was happening. We had no idea. I was still on stage. Willie's like, what's going on? What's going on? And then we still didn't really know by the time the second performance was happening that evening. But, it was starting to become a bit clearer. But it was the fog of war. And I don't think anybody really knew, apart from the unfortunate people that really had to know, what was really happening. And then 2 days later, when it started to become clear the absolute horrific, barbarous nature of this attack and this declaration of war, because that's really what it was. The scenes on the steps of the Opera House where people were chanting whatever they were chanting, whether it was "Where's the Jews?", "Gas the Jews", "Fuck the Jews", it really didn't matter. We knew their intent. And it was so horrific, not just for me, everybody. We were all just completely blown away by this, weren't we? This wave, this extraordinary wave of hatred, not for the people that perpetrated these atrocities, but for the people who were the victims of them. And suddenly it was like all the language was stolen. We were the controllers we were committing genocide. We were running concentration camps. We were doing the ethnic cleansing. We were committing whatever. It was another Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass moment where everything had been turned upside down. And so we didn't, oh, there's a microphone there that's actually been turned on. Could have used that a bit earlier. Thanks. That's good, isn't it? So, I think we're all just completely staggered and kind of just shaking our heads in utter disbelief. We took a while to make a statement, and then we did. And, it was just on our Facebook. And then the opportunity we were given the opportunity to perform at Mushroom's 50th anniversary. And I thought, well, let's use this as a statement. So we both wore blue and white shirts, blue shirts and white suits. Willie wore a white kippah, and I wore a very large Magen David. It was unmistakable what we were saying. And I got on stage and I said, Michael Gudinski really hated my outfit it's only the beginning video. He didn't like my golf pants, but I think he would have really liked this outfit. And that's all I said. And then there was a photo taken that night with a couple of members of Yothu Yindi, and that went up on our Facebook. And once again, we didn't say anything. We said something about, the Mushroom 50th. And the amount of hate that was received on that post was just staggering. I hope you don't get blood on your suit. And, how dare you pose with Indigenous Australians when you're such a coloniser? And, more and more, so much, all of this stuff. And then I did an Andrew Bolt interview, and just because I couldn't believe how, there was this indisputable evidence of women being raped and mutilated, and so many of them, and all of the sense-making institutions had completely gone silent. All of these people that were just so offended if a man would touch them in the wrong way. Suddenly, they had nothing to say. So I did something. I spoke to Andrew Bolt about it. We did a vigil. There was the vigil that was actually around here. And so it was in Caulfield, wasn't it? Anyway, and I, but the conservative media were the only people that were talking about it. So that was just crazy too. The left have utterly kicked up their heels on the whole idea of what, that it's okay to defend people who are. You've got to defend everybody. Everybody's a victim, except if they're Jewish. So suddenly, we're always the oppressor. We're always the coloniser. We're always deserving of whatever it is that the resistance gets up to. And then I did an interview with Patricia Karvelis because I was asked to do it because of...
It was because you'd performed with your white suit and your...
Yes, and because Judy Hausman, who was a board member for the Sydney Theatre Company, had been asked to do it and she didn't want to do it, so she asked me if I would do it, and I did it.
Because of the keffiyeh wearing
and the keffiyeh was
on the Sydney stage.
That was the comparison. So the keffiyeh wearing Sydney Theatre Company seagull people, and our attempts to highlight just to stand up and say we're Jewish and we're not bothered by that. But the conversation quickly turned around, and Patricia was, I don't know what she was demanding, but she was demanding that I say that Israel is committing genocide, I suppose, and nothing less than that would have satisfied this particular interview. Because what I did was I questioned the idea of, who Hamas was thought was counted as children, because when Hamas puts guns in the hands of underage kids, and when they bury their tunnels underneath schools and mosques and hospitals, and they deliberately use their population as human shields, then I think they are the people that are responsible for this horrendous death toll. Whatever that death toll is, and we don't really know what it is. But anyway, that wasn't a good enough answer, and the amount of then I started getting a flood of photos of dead babies with people saying, "Do you call this a child?" Which was horrible, just horrible. So yes, I think people have lost their minds, actually. I think they have absolutely lost their minds. I hope that somehow they regain them, but I don't know, because I feel like the overlay of the oppressed, oppressor, colonised, coloniser, victim, victimiser narrative is so powerful, and people have been so swept up in it that they can't really see another way to look at it.
But then you went to Perth. You were invited as a writer to the Perth Writers' Festival, and there was a letter signed by a lot of
500 people.
500 people didn't want you to come.
500 people signed a letter saying,
I
am causing suffering to Palestinians. I'm causing suffering to Palestinians. I'm obviously very powerful, causing suffering to Palestinians. And so, but to their credit, the Perth Writers' Festival stood their ground. They didn't back down. They scheduled more Palestinian writers to speak, which was great. The more voices, the merrier. And we had a couple of interactions with these people, and they were very reasonable and pleasant, and it was all fine. The first two events were great, and the third event there was an infiltration of people who decided that they felt the deep and desperate need to stand up in the middle, screaming, "Globalise the Intifada," and "From the river to the sea." At which point I had to be escorted off stage, and these people were escorted from the room. So, yeah, kind of rattling, but...
Globalise the Intifada means bombs anywhere, everywhere.
And,
That's what it means.
That's right. And I don't know why... as I said, I think they've lost their minds. I don't know if they know what they're saying. It's weird. It's like, as someone said on our Facebook, It's the zombie apocalypse. Felt good, yeah. Felt like a good description.
And now you're in the paper yesterday in the Australian, if anyone hasn't seen it. Because
the sound is doing very strange things.
There's even more stuff happening with cancellations.
Yeah, there's it's just an ongoing issue, and I don't know. Maybe the article from yesterday will kind of wake a few people up to say, actually, she doesn't look like a genocidal, killing, baby slaughtering maniac. Maybe we should rethink this. So that's what I'm really hoping. Yeah.
I think we should get Willie up again to play something.
Okay.
From the more recent.
From Stories of Ghosts. That's what you would like.
Well, what do you feel like? I mean,
yeah, we can do that. Was that what do you feel? What do you feel like? Or we can do something. Sing something. Okay. What do you want to do?
Can I ask you a question?
What?
Can I ask you a question?
You want to ask me a question?
Are you still contracted to the ABC?
Oh, no, I don't want you to ask any questions like that because we're in the middle of this thing. So I'll ask for questions later. No, it's not actually.
No.
So we're going to have music. We're going to have some questions from you for Deborah. And then I can have a chat to you privately afterwards,
We
okay?
could do As Sweet as Battles one. Would that be a good song? Okay, so what we'll do is so we'll do a song not from Stories of Ghosts.
Do you want me to hold that? Do you want me to
No,
hold it?
that's okay. I'm going to sing loud. But I won't talk loud. I'll save it for my singing. So we're going to do a song from a record called Everybody's Begging, which is the one that came after Stories of Ghosts. The last three records, Stories of Ghosts 2013, Everybody's Begging 2016, and Words of Men 2019, really all of them really deal with our obsessions about all of the stuff that we've been talking about, and this is, I think, kind of a historical depiction of Jews across the millennia, and also a battle cry, perhaps. It's a heavy chair. I don't know. It's stuck. All right. I was there at the camps. I was there at Babylon. Saw your face at Babia. I am gone, baby, gone. I felt your breath upon my neck, smelt your perfume on my gun. I was with you in the olive groves, as sweet as battles won. I was there right beside you when we sang the workers' song. I was there when the idols became dust, the dully shone. Well, I held you in my arms as you dreamt of old Zion. I love you at the shoreline, as sweet as battles won, as sweet as battles won. I was there working for Pharaoh. I lay bruised amongst the stone. I heard our hearts that stopped beating, and I know we all die alone. But when you hold me down with words of love on your tongue, the future is a dream we dream, as sweet as battles won. The future is a dream we dream, as sweet as battles won. I was there for your equations. I was there to play the violin. I was there to be moved on. Again, again, again. Oh, you hate the fucking Jews, but you always liked Bob Dylan. Well, it's me that you got now, as sweet as battles won. I was there for your equations. The Lord our God, the Lord is is won. I was there on the seventh day when you said the world was done. You got other things on your mind now. Everyone's forgotten about the bomb. Well, I heard your love's eternal, as sweet as battles won. I heard your love's eternal, as sweet as battles won. I saw the country near succumb. Well, I watched them build the temple, all that glory and then none. I was there to hear glass shatter as the wedding songs were sung. And inside me a child's growing, as sweet as battles won, as sweet as battles won, as sweet